killer husband realized his wife is still breathing. All right, let's get into it.
Yes.
This is 37-year-old Jimmy Allen. Jimmy just discovered his wife's body in the basement of their Michigan home. 18 minutes earlier, he placed this 911 call.
Okay, what's going on there?
She's in the basement.
Somebody call
Pulled her up. I tried to give her CPR. I pulled her up and
The dispatcher instructed Jimmy to continue giving Amy CPR while several units rushed to the scene. Officer Ben J. Horn was the first to arrive. Despite the desperation in Jimmy's voice during the 911 call, it was eerily silent as Officer Horn approached the residence. However, as soon as the officer made himself known, Jimmy began crying out for help.
Police department, police department.
hello, help,
Yes.
Jimmy was found in the basement, sobbing over his unresponsive wife's body. As he grieved, he continued performing CPR.
How long has she been down? Do you have any idea? Do you have any idea?
Can't be more than about 20 minutes.
Okay.
Oh my god, he's really
Oddly
good at
enough,
acting.
Amy didn't have any significant injuries, except for a very faint mark near her jugular. By 8:57 p.m.,
Yes,
more
Bexy, I
officers
remember you.
arrived, along with several EMTs. They piled into the basement to take over Jimmy's life-saving efforts. Now that Jimmy had a moment to process what was going on, he dramatically ripped his shirt off and broke down on the basement floor. He was able to quickly compose himself and continued to observe the EMTs.
Nah, he's a good
aiding
actor.
Amy.
Oh my
Jimmy
god.
alternated between complete composure and emotional outbursts several times.
You want to come upstairs with me real quick? Okay.
As you can see, Jimmy seemed calm as he walked up the basement stairs, but as he entered the kitchen, he unleashed his wrath onto an unsuspecting bowl of potato chips. The officers weren't sure what to make of this erratic behavior, especially since they had no clue what led up to the discovery of Amy's body.
Did she make any statements at all?
No, she was just
Jimmy gave the officers a quick summary of his and Amy's night. At around 6:30 p.m., the couple dropped their daughter and her friend off at a nearby high school football game and then headed downtown for some drinks. While at a bar, they got into an argument and Amy ended up walking home alone while Jimmy drove home in their car. When Amy got back home, the arguing continued, so he left her alone to cool off. He went upstairs and threw on the Jim Carrey film Ace Ventura. When it was time
So
to
wait,
pick
how
up
do they
their
know all of
daughter,
that stuff,
he went to check on Amy again.
was like irritated and I didn't hear anything, so I went back down and checked on her and Jesus.
Does Amy have a history of anything like this? Nothing in her background at all.
Ever.
Okay.
The officers found
Wait,
it
can you guys
strange that
hear
they would
everything, the
escalate
audio?
things to this degree
The video
out of
audio and my
nowhere,
audio.
But nobody seemed as shocked as Jimmy.
I'm hoping I wake up, dude.
Unfortunately for Jimmy, this was a nightmare that he wouldn't be waking up from. But suddenly, an EMT emerged from the basement with a glimmer of hope.
Huh? What?
Says she's fighting.
Bro, look. Bro, he already has his shirt off, bro. If I was a cop, he'd be my first suspect. Because he, bro, like...
The EMTs were able to re-establish a faint pulse, so Amy was still clinging to life. But when Jimmy realized that his wife was still breathing, he seemed frustrated by this promising news. His reaction immediately set off red flags for the officers.
He's like,
Jimmy
fuck.
then left the room momentarily
Fuck,
to
I'm
grab
done.
a new shirt, and when he came back, he called his daughter Ashley to inform her of the emergency.
We had an emergency. Don't go anywhere. There's an emergency. Don't go anywhere. I'll talk to you in a little bit.
Jimmy didn't want Ashley to panic over the phone, so he kept his composure and didn't share any details of what had happened. But right after that phone call, he called his parents and spilled his heart out.
Oh, I don't know what to do, Mom. I don't know what to do. Oh, this is terrible. I gotta talk to the cops.
Although Jimmy was crying his heart out, the officers spotted no moisture on his face at all. They decided to have him wait outside, away from the crime scene. Shortly after, Amy was placed on a stretcher and taken to the back of an ambulance. They rushed her to the ProMedica Herrick Hospital, just 2 minutes away. The EMTs were finished in the basement, so the officers headed back inside to do further investigation. Now that the dust had settled, they immediately noticed something strange. The basement ceilings were very low, so low that they began to question the logistics of Jimmy's story. Amy was 5 foot 6 inches, and the basement ceiling wasn't much higher, roughly 7 feet. But rather than jumping
Wait,
to
what was his
conclusions,
story?
the investigators decided to wrap things up for the night. The next morning, Officer Horn and his partner returned to the Allen household to ask Jimmy some more questions.
Fahad, thank you for the follow,
They
Fahad.
hoped to get a better understanding of what led up to the incident. According to Jimmy, the family started their day in high spirits by making breakfast together and getting Ashley ready for school.
Just listening to music and making lunch and breakfast, smile on her face.
At around 7:30 a.m., Jimmy left for work and Ashley left for school, while Amy stayed home. Jimmy decided to leave work early, so around 12:30 p.m., he came home and took a nap. Then, at 2:45 p.m., the school day was over and it was time to pick up Ashley.
Ashley had a friend over, Kayla, after school. Amy picked her up and I was just kind of in bed. And they came here, she made everybody dinner, 6:30. We rolled out to take them to the game.
After a nice family dinner, everybody hopped in the car and drove to the Tecumseh High School for the football game. As mentioned before, Jimmy and Amy dropped off the girls and decided to head downtown to go bar hopping. They first went to Ember's Bar and Grill, then to JR's Hometown Grill and Pub shortly after. Investigators would later
Wait, what
confirm
state
this
is
part
this?
of Jimmy's story by obtaining the security footage from JR's. Apparently, nothing seemed out of the ordinary until Jimmy brought up the idea of selling their house and moving down south. Since the family had just moved to Michigan from Florida 1 year earlier, Amy was not fond of this idea. She began texting someone on her phone and became dismissive of Jimmy's comments.
She said a couple times that, oh, that's not going to work. And she's normally positive and was sort of down and negative. And we started to disagree about it. And she's like, you know, I hope that works out for you. And I'm like, what do you mean, me? I'm talking about our life. Like, and this isn't hardcore planning. This is like you talking about, you know, our future. And she just, well, I hope that works out for you.
Jimmy said that this comment sparked an argument between the two. By the time they left the bar, things were very tense. Amy decided that she would rather walk home than sit with Jimmy any longer. This was also confirmed by this surveillance footage, which captured Amy walking down the street, heading in the direction of their house. Amy arrived home at 7:58 p.m. She grabbed an extension cord and then went down to the basement.
Hey, thank you,
At
Abdullahi.
8:05 p.m., Jimmy decided
Check
to
out
go
your
check
Discord
on
DM. React to it. Alright, okay.
Louie, one of our cats.
Alright.
And,
Let me finish this first.
Apparently, Amy was angry at him for slamming the door in her face as they left the bar. But according to Jimmy, it was just an accident. He did forget to hold the door for her, but he
Wallahi,
didn't
the
slam
scary,
it
bro, the
intentionally.
scary thing
Amy
is, if
didn't
I
believe that it was
wait,
an
hold on.
accident.
The scary thing is, if I ever saw this guy,
So she
I
started
would not
throwing
think.
insults at him, and the two proceeded
If I
to
ever saw this guy, I would not think he could be violent. Like, I would never even imagine him being violent. He looks so mesquite, bro.
argue for about 10 minutes. Nothing good was coming from this argument, so Jimmy went back upstairs, leaving Amy in the basement with the extension cord. About 25 minutes later, at 8:40 p.m., Jimmy realized that it was time to pick up Ashley from the football game. Before he left, he went back to the basement to squash the beef with Amy.
And immediately do that and started, you know, check for a pulse. When I glanced down there, I saw there looked like a upturned kitty litter pail.
Huh.
Because I'm like, like I said, it was just so,
Sure.
The officer asked if there were any signs that something
I'm just
like this
saying, man,
might
if this
happen,
was
but
Somali,
Jimmy
they
said
would have
that he
never
could
catched
have
the
seen
guy.
this coming.
They would have just believed the guy and be like, yeah,
playing back the
qadr
what
baqar.
was, what triggered, what was.
Wait,
You ever
uqrnit.
tried anything like this before?
Never had anything ever. Like, we live a healthy lifestyle. We work out. We go rock climbing 3 times a week in Ann Arbor. We like cook meals at home. We grow our own vegetables out here. Money trouble. No, I mean this is like the pinnacle of like, you know, best job I've ever had. I make great money. She's a stay-at-home mom.
Alright, let me
Takes care of the
skip
5
forward,
cats,
bro.
the
Let me skip
pool,
forward.
and is there for my daughter doing sports and activities.
Sure.
The items that belonged to Amy, including her computer and cell phone. Following their search, Officer Horn headed back outside to speak with Ashley. She was visibly shaken up by the incident, but the detectives needed to know if Amy and Jimmy had a history of violent altercations.
Were your mom and dad fighting at all yesterday that you recall?
No, but everything was normal when I left.
When you left? Okay. Is there a history of the, like, fighting or arguing or anything like that? Nothing ever? Okay.
The officer also asked about Amy's state of mind, but Ashley said that even though her mom was a deeply introverted person, she had always been emotionally stable. This interview wasn't as fruitful as the officers had hoped, but shortly after, they were approached by several of Amy's family
Wait, bro.
They said that Jimmy waited
I
for
want to know what he'd done to her.
14 hours to tell them about the incident. As soon as they heard the news, they rushed over to the police department because they had an abundance of useful information for the police. The investigators learned that back in 1997, when Amy was just 13, she had a son named Caleb. Her parents looked after Caleb while she attended high school in Ocala, Florida. By the end of high school, she began dating Jimmy, who had no problem becoming a father figure to Caleb. When Amy was 19, they had Ashley, and from that point on, Amy stayed home to take care of the kids while Jimmy worked. However, according to Amy's family, this wasn't her choice. They believed that Jimmy was a controlling husband who didn't want Amy to become financially independent. He would monitor everything the family did, from their social media activities to what they were eating throughout the day. He would also discipline the kids if he believed they were misbehaving, frequently taking things too far. Whenever Amy stood up to Jimmy, her opinion didn't seem to matter. Whatever Jimmy wanted, Jimmy got. So when Caleb turned 17, he left to stay with his grandparents. Jimmy retaliated, telling Amy that she was no longer allowed to speak with her family, including Caleb. One of the last times Caleb saw her was at his high school graduation a year before the incident. But other than that, Amy had minimal involvement in Caleb's life. All of this evidence was extremely damning for Jimmy. It wouldn't be a surprise if an abusive and controlling husband tried to murder his wife. But if the police wanted to bulletproof their case against Jimmy, they needed to answer one big question. What was Jimmy's motive? Unfortunately, before the investigators could answer this question, they received tragic news. On September 17, 2018, after being unresponsive for 3 days, Amy was taken off of life support and pronounced dead. With a possible homicide now on their hands, the authorities pressed on with their investigation. They decided to look for answers in Amy's cell phone. In her text with Jimmy, his controlling behavior was on full display. He had somehow been tracking Amy's every move. He would frequently text Amy her exact location and ask her why she was there. Despite all of Jimmy's torment, Amy seemed completely fine in her other conversations. This evidence strengthened the case against Jimmy, but the detectives still couldn't pinpoint an exact motive. That was until they looked through a conversation.
Bro, what
with a
the
man
fuck?
named
The title says the killer husband realizes the wife is still breathing, so she actually died.
George. George was a married man from the East Coast that Amy had met online and had been texting for the past 3 years. Based on the explicit content of the messages, it was clear that they were having an affair. Even on the day of the incident, Amy and George were consistently texting and calling each other. While Amy was having dinner with her family at 5:07 p.m., George texted her saying, "I wish we could be together right now."
Oh damn,
At
she was
5:29
cheating.
p.m., Amy responded with, "I'm excited to see you again." And remember when Amy began texting somebody during the argument at JR's Grill and Pub? It turns out that she was texting George, even with Jimmy sitting directly beside her. From these findings, a new theory emerged. Perhaps Jimmy had caught a glimpse of these text
it's never worth it, man.
conversations and was overcome
If someone
with
cheats,
anger,
just leave
which
them.
ultimately led to him attacking Amy in the basement. The investigators were eager to ask Jimmy some more questions, but they ran into a small problem. Jimmy was nowhere to be found. It turns out that just a few days after the incident, Jimmy and Ashley packed their belongings, including their 5 cats, and headed back to their hometown, Ocala, Florida, to stay with family. Thankfully, the authorities were easily able to get in touch with Jimmy to arrange another interview. He told them that he would be back in Michigan in a few weeks to grab some of his stuff. Since the Tecumseh Police Department had limited personnel and resources, the Michigan State Police had taken over the investigation, and Detective Larry Rothman was put on the case. 1 month after Amy's death, he met Jimmy at the station for a formal interview. During his stay in Florida, Jimmy had plenty of time to reflect on his relationship with Amy, and he was forthright with the detective about his shortcomings.
It wasn't so inner focused and self focused. Maybe
the
could have
quality
seen
is
things
shit.
that were going on that maybe could have clued me into what my wife was in so much turmoil that
I'm not trying to justify, but
I mean, that's how it feels. Like, I don't even know who I am.
It's hard to believe this statement from Jimmy, because moments later, when asked to describe himself, he gives an awfully detailed answer.
Describe yourself. What kind of a person are you?
I would say I'm a type A personality. I like
what is that?
structure, organization. I'm ambitious. Always seeking to improve myself and others around me. That's why all this is so pressing to me.
Better Call
because,
Saul,
like,
yeah.
I've really taken measures
No one, bro.
in the
Even
last
Better Call Saul
couple
can't
years
save this
to,
guy.
like,
He is effed.
make sure that myself, my family, were like mentally fit, like mentally healthy, like pursuing things that not only get you physical, like, but helping others.
I mean, so far they have nothing on it.
Like I said, making
We're halfway
things
through the
that
video and they
make
have
person
nothing on it.
making a positive impact on people.
Without
Apart
a doubt,
from, like, text
Jimmy's
messages.
obsession with creating the perfect family was immensely toxic. However, Jimmy seemed to take pride in this toxic behavior, framing it as a strength. He believed that his role in the family was to hold them to a higher standard. No matter how much Jimmy
He looks
painted
like him.
himself as an upstanding family man, the detectives weren't buying it.
Looking back now, where you're at now, does anything pop out at you?
Yeah, there's, I mean,
Do you know what's crazy? Like, if he hired the right lawyer, he can get away with this. That's fucked.
What kind of issues?
she struggled from like social anxiety, so she's been like that for years. She's just extremely shy, introverted person. She never developed relationships in Mormon Ocala. She didn't have any friends. She was playing like video games compulsively, that World of Warcraft thing. That got out of hand, so she just sort of started isolating herself. And so I had taken measures when we got up here to help her break out of it.
Jimmy is painting himself as a valiant savior, guiding his wife away from her bad habits towards a healthy lifestyle. But
Well,
as
I'm
we mentioned
confused.
earlier, everybody who was close to Amy said that Jimmy was the main cause of her isolation. While asking Jimmy about infidelity in the relationship, he revealed that Amy wasn't the only one cheating.
Oh.
There was one time when I went to the Isle of Man and hooked up with this
Anytime during your marriage, do you know she was unfaithful to you?
chick. I don't think that would be possible.
Why is that?
She didn't seem to have the capacity to
Wait, so they were
like,
both
talk
cheating?
to people, man. I mean,
They
she
were
was,
both
like,
fucking around.
Incredibly introverted.
Clearly, Jimmy underestimated Amy's charm. Later in the interview, the detective set the record straight, bluntly telling Jimmy that Amy was in fact having an affair.
What was your knowledge of her affair?
So he
I don't
knew.
think she had an affair. To my knowledge, I have no idea. I wouldn't think it was possible.
There was a lot of stuff that she had tried to delete there, but I mean, we're talking, telling this other guy she loves him.
I think that you're bullshit, but
I'm not. I'm not gonna lie to you today, and I haven't. You know, so I just.
well, I'll just tell you right now, I don't believe it.
Jimmy seemed to be in denial, so
Wait.
the detective printed off some excerpts from Amy's conversations with George.
So he
some
knows
more
his
risque than
his wife
others.
was cheating with him with another guy. So why is he pretending like
Clearly, there was something
he
going on
gained from
between
pretending
these people.
like he doesn't
As
know?
someone who had a say in every aspect of Amy's life, he seemed completely blindsided by her secret life with George. He wanted more answers.
Can you pull phone records to see if there's any numbers that I can see that I don't recognize? And that's like, to me, is crushing to think that she even has some alternate life. Like, I live
Wait,
in-
wouldn't that help him? I'm so confused. Maybe he's too smart, man.
You guys, I'm
I
sorry.
understand.
I don't think that she has the capacity to do that. Like I said, this is the most shocking, like, I can't even process it.
In a last-ditch effort to elicit a confession, the detective asked Jimmy if he would take a polygraph test. Jimmy agreed and maintained his innocence the entire time.
Damn.
Ultimately, the test results were inconclusive. The detective wrapped up the interview, less certain about Jimmy's involvement than before. Jimmy was allowed to leave, and he went back to Florida later that
So yeah, this is why you should
The
never
police
believe
struggled
this
to
whole
find any new
fucking
leads,
lie
so they had
detector
no
machines.
choice but
They
to
don't
wait
work,
for the
bro.
medical examiner to release Amy's autopsy.
I can
report.
beat it.
That day
I
finally
can
came
beat the lie
3
detector
months after Amy's
machine.
death. It was confirmed
Just
that the cause
control
of death
your
was
breathing and you
strangulation
beat it.
asphyxiation, but the manner of death was undetermined, requiring additional investigation. The ball was back in Detective Rothman's court, but finding more evidence to determine whether or not this was a homicide was easier said than done. He meticulously looked through all of the evidence, including the body cam footage. He stumbled upon the moment that Officer Horn noticed how low the basement ceiling was, and he suddenly had an idea. Rothman reached out to a forensic engineering lab in Michigan and asked them to recreate the scenario Jimmy had supposedly stumbled upon. After many months of preparation, testing, and analyzing the results, the lab determined that under the same circumstances, her feet would have made contact with the ground. A different forensic pathologist reviewed the same test results, and they determined that her manner of death must have been a homicide. On October 16, 2020, Jimmy was charged with one felony count of open murder. This meant that if the case went to trial, it would be up to the jury to determine the degree of homicide Jimmy is guilty of,
she hanged
anywhere
herself?
from involuntary manslaughter to first-degree murder. By this point in the investigation, it appeared that Jimmy, who was still staying with his parents in Florida, had moved on entirely. In fact, he even had a new fiancée, and their wedding was just 5 days away. But before they could tie the knot, Jimmy was arrested and extradited back to Michigan. Once he was booked into jail, he was brought into a room to have his charges explained to him.
Fast.
When told that he could contact the investigators,
they already had someone else ready to marry.
Jimmy said something peculiar.
If you have any questions, feel free to get a hold of us, or they can contact us. Okay?
It's how you sleep at night. Oh.
Well, I guess I don't understand that question.
Okay.
A few weeks later, at his arraignment hearing, Jimmy pled not guilty. His bond was set at $10 million, and he was put behind bars. Leading up to his trial, his defense attorney Daniel Guerin released this statement. Mr. Allen vehemently asserts his innocence in this case, as he had absolutely nothing to do with Amy Allen's tragic death. He cooperated with police throughout the 2-year investigation and provided evidence and statements showing his innocence from the very beginning. He has been in jail for nearly a year for a crime he did not commit, and he misses his family dearly. He is looking forward to the evidence finally being shown to a jury of his peers so they can see clearly that he is innocent and did absolutely nothing wrong. In September of 2021, 3 years after Amy's death, his trial began. Prosecutor Angie Borders kicked off the opening statements. She said that her team was confident that the evidence would point the jury to a guilty verdict. Defense attorney Daniel Guerin delivered the defense's opening statement.
Nah, this lawyer is good. This lawyer is good. Oh wait, did it lag?
Was the last thing on Jimmy's mind.
The phone searches they get from Jimmy's phone shows that he's looking at searches for Jim Carrey movies and other Showtime shows, the exact shows that he had told police that night that he had watched.
One of the key witnesses for the prosecution
was
back. Amy's son,
oh
Caleb.
yeah.
He told
guys, tell me when it lagged, so I need to like go back and refresh.
I stood up, pushed him against the wall, and there was a second of fear.
Wait, this is him?
Came over me, and I realized what I was doing, and I let up, and then I was spun around, or maybe I turned around, and then I was choked from behind on the floor for multiple seconds. It felt like forever during the incident. And I was gasping for air, grabbing for anything, trying to get away from him.
This story suggested that Jimmy had a history of choking people when he got angry. If he was willing to choke Caleb, it's reasonable to assume that he was willing to choke Amy as well. Several witnesses that were at the scene that night were also called to the stand, including first responders and neighbors. They all testified that Jimmy's over-the-top reactions seemed like he was putting on an act.
Now that's a good acting. Oh my god, that's actually very good acting.
There were several moments where he would be sobbing uncontrollably.
This is terrible.
But would instantly compose himself to answer the officer's questions.
I gotta talk to the cops.
On top of Jimmy's questionable behavior, Officer Horn also noted that Amy's injuries did not align with Jimmy's story.
You know, I was definitely looking for any injuries, whether it be from a hang or otherwise, and I really didn't see any sort of the typical injuries that I normally would have seen in a So I definitely took note of that.
Later in the trial, a hospital staff member that treated Amy agreed with Officer Horn's observations, saying that the lack of external injuries suggested foul play.
No visible injuries.
No visible injuries. Is that strike you as odd?
It was a red flag.
One witness that nobody expected was none other than Mystery Man George.
And was there an occasion where you came to know a person?
Oh, that's the guy she was cheating on with.
On the internet?
Yes, we spoke online often. We talked about life. We also, there was a little bit of sexual content. That's what we talked about.
For the most part, George and Amy communicated through text and video calls. But the more they got to know each other, the more eager they were to see each other in person.
Ah, things were getting heated up. Things were getting sexual.
The first time the two met up was in spring of 2017 to grab some coffee. The second time was several months later when Amy met George in a hotel room.
I was here for work, and she had some free time, so she came to the hotel.
So you're at a hotel?
Yes.
Did things that happen at a hotel happen at that hotel?
Some things, yes.
Apparently, George and Amy's love for each other only grew as time went on. Even on the day of her death,
Oh, that's
Amy
disgusting,
showed no
man.
signs of wanting to slow down.
I wrote, I love you. And I wrote, I want more of you. And she wrote, I love you too. I'm ready to spend time with you in person. And I wrote, good. Let's do it. And then she wrote, end of October. And I wrote, I'm in.
Dr. Elizabeth Buck also played a
Wallahi,
crucial
guys,
role
wallahi,
in the
I noticed
prosecution's case.
the world's so fucked up now. People love people that are married. For some reason, wallahi, men, women, they're all the same now. They just love hooking up with people that are married. I don't know what it is.
During
The
her
obsession
testimony,
is
she
crazy.
took the jury through the extension cord experiment we mentioned earlier.
The first question that Detective Rothman asked was, can an extension cord suspend 140 pounds? The testing was performed. The answer is no.
According to the prosecution, the results of her tests were more than enough to debunk Jimmy's story. When it was the defense's turn to call witnesses, they had Jimmy's father testify. According to him, Jimmy didn't flee the state because he was guilty. It was because Jimmy's family urged him to stay with them in Florida.
He seemed somewhat composed, but totally shattered, and almost empty, if you would. I'd never seen him like that before, since. He was almost non-responsive. He seemed to have lost interest in anything.
Ashley also
Well,
testified
I just want
on
to
her
know, did
father's
he do
behalf.
it? Yes or
the
no?
day after the incident,
Oh,
she had
I'm
said
losing
that her
patience.
mother had always been stable. But now, 3 years later, her story had completely changed.
Did you notice anything from your vantage point that was a problem that you behaviors or issues that you saw when your mom was drinking alcohol?
Two things, yes. My mother overindulged in alcohol frequently, and she became intoxicated very easily and frequently as well, which would cause her to be not herself at all. She would be meaner and more violent.
When Amy was placed under intensive care, her blood alcohol content was recorded at 0.09%, likely caused by the 2 or 3 drinks that she consumed at the bars that night.
So she's
the
lying.
defense said that this was proof of Amy's drinking problem and that she wasn't as chipper as the prosecution had
Wait,
suggested.
wait,
They also questioned the forensic pathologist
0.009%. Isn't that low?
who claimed that this was a homicide. To dispute this notion, the defense had actually reached out to their own expert, Dr. Francisco J. Diaz. According to Dr. Diaz, since there was minimal bleeding to the strap muscles of the neck, no petechiae, and no evidence of defensive-type injuries, he believed that Amy's death was not the result of somebody else's actions. The defense had called all of their witnesses, but they had a lot more to say in their closing arguments. They said that the prosecution's case was utter speculation, and the fact that Jimmy had 0 defensive marks on him was proof of that.
Anyone puts you in a chokehold, you're going to scratch the you-know-what out of his arms. Because you're fighting for life, you're fighting for that air hunger, and you're trying to stay alive.
They also said that even though Amy and George's relationship seemed to be flourishing, it was actually just a fantasy, an escape from the dejected state of mind that plagued Amy's life.
You know, the people want to say this was sort of this thing she was looking forward to break free. It was 3 years.
Nah, that's a good
3
lawyer,
years.
man.
And they
This
have
is a
3 years to
fucking good
meet. They
lawyer.
meet one time for 2 hours. She was not talking to her family.
Passionate
she was
lawyer.
isolated. She didn't have a job. She was socially anxious. And that is not to beat up Amy Allen. It is to tell you that she was living sort of a double parallel life. And we believe the fuse was lit. And we had, unfortunately, isolation, drinking, odd behavior, the guilt of a very graphic and long-term affair unbeknownst to Jimmy and his daughter that ultimately led to her very sad and tragic death on Friday, September 14th of 2018.
Both sides rested their case. Jimmy's fate was now in the hands of the jury. After about 6 hours of deliberations, they had their verdict.
You do say upon your oath
Oh.
that you find the defendant guilty of the lesser offense of second-degree murder.
Okay.
After this verdict, Jimmy didn't seem to know what to do with himself. He wandered aimlessly for a bit, and when it was time to be booked into the jail, he bashfully waved goodbye to his family. On October 21st,
Wait, I'm confused,
2021,
bro.
Jimmy was sentenced to 20 to 45 years in prison in the Michigan Department of Corrections. He currently resides at the St. Louis Correctional Facility
Wait,
and will be eligible for parole in the year 2040.
What the fuck, man? Did he do it or no? I mean, I'm guessing he did it, but they didn't tell us exactly what he got charged with. They said with lesser, so I'm so confused, man. I'm guessing he did it, but they didn't tell us exactly what he was charged with. First degree murder, second degree murder.
Jimmy's fate was now in the hands of the jury. After about 6 hours of deliberations, they had
Hey, who's
their
so high?
verdict.
You do say upon your oath that you find the defendant guilty of the lesser offense of second-degree murder.
Oh.
After this verdict, Jimmy didn't seem to know what to
second degree murder. Okay. All right, that makes sense. All right, cool.
do with himself. He wandered aimlessly for a bit, and
That's
when it
not
was
bad. That's not bad. That's not bad. Hey, that's risky, guys. Let me just one fun fact. Most, I think it was more than like 70. Don't quote me on this. 70% of wife deaths come from husbands. I don't know where I heard that from, but I've heard it from somewhere. I can't remember where it was exactly. That's scary, man. That's scary. So, ladies, marry someone you could beat the shit out of. Marry a skinny guy, or just go to the gym and work out. That's fucking scary, man. Oh my god. Bro, now that you know everything that you know now, go back to the start of the footage and just watch this.
Police department, police department. Hello, help
Yes.
me.
Look how bad he's screaming.
This is 37-year-old
Get
Jimmy
out of
Allen.
here, bro.
Jimmy just
Get out of here. That's scary. Wallahi, bratalah, we live in a scary world. We live in a flipping scary world, man.